Bridget the gorilla had always carried an air of mystery in her gaze, the kind that made visitors pause, children press closer to the glass, and keepers whisper among themselves that this was no ordinary gorilla. She was born in the dense, emerald arms of Africa's rainforests, a place where life sang from every leaf, and the pulse of the wild carried harmony and chaos in equal measure. But even paradise has its shadows. When Bridget was only a fragile infant, her mother was stolen from her by poachers, a brutal act that left the tiny gorilla trembling and alone in the underbrush. A ranger would later recall finding her. She was hiding in the bushes, her little body shaking, her eyes wide with a fear no baby should ever know. Those words became part of her story, echoing in the hearts of all who heard them. In that moment, she was not just an orphaned gorilla, she was the broken song of a forest crying out for mercy. Rescuers carried her away from danger, bringing her into the arms of conservationists who promised her a new beginning. At the Columbus Zoo, Bridget found not just survival, but the first fragile threads of love and safety. The keepers, patient and gentle, nurtured her as though she were their own child. They gave her not only food, but warmth, affection, and the stability of a home. Slowly, trust bloomed. Bridget began to mirror their smiles, respond to their voices, and reveal the radiant intelligence glowing within her. Caretakers marveled at her keen observation, how she seemed to study their every gesture, every emotion. Her eyes understand everything, whispered Maria one evening, her voice breaking with awe. It was as though Bridget carried both the sorrow of her stolen past and the hope of a future where human and animal might meet as equals. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Years passed, and the orphaned infant transformed into a queen of her enclosure, commanding presence not with dominance, but with kindness. By the time Bridget turned 11, she had become the heart of the zoo, a gorilla who could make children giggle by mimicking their gestures, who could make caretakers laugh with her mischief, and who could draw tears with her soulful stares that seemed to say, "I remember pain, but I also remember kindness." Yet, just when life appeared steady, the winds of change swept in. The keepers noticed subtle shifts. Bridget began refusing food, she moved slower, and her days were filled with unusual stillness. Concern grew heavy in the hearts of her caregivers. Dr. Emily Harris, the lead veterinarian, was summoned to examine her. At first, everyone braced for bad news. Perhaps illness, perhaps the ghosts of her difficult childhood had returned to haunt her health. But what they discovered made the entire team gasp in disbelief. Bridget was pregnant. "That can't be right," Dr. Emily exclaimed, almost dropping her notes. The news spread like wildfire across the zoo, filling the staff with a mixture of astonishment, fear, and uncontainable joy. Bridget, the orphaned gorilla who had once been alone in the world, was now preparing to bring life into it. Her bond with Kofu, a visiting male gorilla, had blossomed quietly, unnoticed by many, until this moment revealed their hidden story. It was as if fate had decided to heal the wound of her orphan past by gifting her the chance to become a mother. Caretakers wept as they realized this was no ordinary pregnancy. This was the continuation of her story, a miracle wrapped in fur and heartbeat. He gives the barren woman a home, making her the joyous mother of children. Praise the Lord. The days that followed became a blend of wonder and worry. Bridget's pregnancy was unlike any the staff had witnessed. She withdrew from her group, seeking quiet corners of her habitat, eating ravenously one moment and refusing food the next. Tom, a zookeeper, scribbled in his notebook, "She avoids everyone, even her caretakers. It's more than solitude, it feels like fear." And yet, every choice Bridget made carried a primal wisdom, the instinct of a mother seeking sanctuary. Dr. Emily, though concerned, refused to isolate her from her family entirely, understanding that emotional stability mattered as much as physical health. Still, Bridget's behavior puzzled even the most seasoned experts. "Bridget, sweetheart," Maria would call softly, holding out a banana. But the gorilla only blinked slowly, curling deeper into herself. Weeks turned into months and the tension grew unbearable. The zookeeper's bond with Bridget meant that her every silence, her every sigh weighed heavily on their hearts. And just when the team thought the pregnancy was already mysterious enough, fate brought another twist. A new veterinarian, Dr. Jason Miller, joined the zoo. With sharp eyes and bold ideas, he clashed almost instantly with Dr. Emily. "Your methods are outdated," Jason declared. Emily stood tall, her voice trembling but firm. "My methods have saved gorillas for decades." Their arguments echoed through the halls, over diet, over enrichment, over whether Bridget should be isolated or encouraged to socialize. To some, their debates felt like science. To others, it felt like a battle for Bridget's soul. And Bridget, silent and watchful, became the battleground between two human philosophies. Two are better than one, for if they fall, one will lift up the other. Then it happened. Far earlier than anyone expected, Bridget went into labor. Panic rippled through the staff. Tom raced from the enclosure, shouting, "It's premature, call both doctors now." The debates, the conflicts, the differing opinions in that moment, none of it mattered. Life was calling. Bridget's breaths grew heavy, her eyes wide with both terror and determination. Around her, the keepers held their breath. Would she survive? Would the baby? As the tension mounted, Dr. Emily and Dr. Jason locked eyes. "We must work together," Emily said firmly. Jason hesitated, then nodded. In that instant, they became one team, their hands moving in unison, their voices guiding each other through the storm. Hours stretched like lifetimes. Bridget cried out, her mighty body trembling, yet her spirit unbroken. Then finally, amidst the sweat, the prayers, and the desperate pounding of human hearts, a sound pierced the air. A tiny cry. The miracle had arrived. The staff wept openly, their hands pressed to their faces. Bridget, once an orphan lost to poachers, now held her own baby close, cradling it with trembling arms and a gaze so full of love it silenced every argument, every doubt. It was a sight that could shatter the hardest heart and lift the heaviest soul. In that fragile moment, animal and humanity stood together, not as caretaker and creature, but as family. Bridget's story had come full circle. She was no longer just the gorilla saved by humans. She was the mother who had saved them all, reminding them that life, even in its most fragile form, is the greatest miracle. For with God nothing shall be impossible. Bridget raised her baby with fierce love, and the zoo became a place not of walls and fences, but of healing and hope. Visitors came not just to see animals, but to witness a story of survival, compassion, and the eternal bond between mothers and children. A story that proved once more that the wild still has miracles to give, if only humanity listens. The delivery that had begun with so much hope soon turned into a storm of fear. Bridget groaned and trembled, her massive hands clutching at the ground as if she were holding onto life itself. Hours dragged by like eternity, each contraction ringing out cries that pierced the hearts of everyone who loved her. The zookeepers, their eyes wet with helplessness, whispered words of comfort as though their voices could somehow ease her agony. "Come on, Bridget, you can do this," Tom murmured, pressing his hand against the glass, but nothing came. No newborn's cry, no sign of life breaking through the pain. Dr. Jason's face grew pale. "Something's not right, doctor," he whispered, leaning toward Emily. "The baby should have arrived by now." Emily nodded grimly, her hands clenched. She knew what this meant. They were standing on the edge of a decision that could cost them everything. In nature, animals deliver alone. Intervention is rare, sometimes even dangerous. But here, in this room charged with fear and hope, nature had collided with necessity. Emily and Jason looked at each other. The conflict that once divided them melted away, leaving only the sacred mission of saving Bridget and her child. "We intervene," Emily said firmly, her voice trembling with urgency. Jason nodded. The room shifted instantly. Keepers ran for supplies, lights sharpened, and prayers silently filled the air. Emily's hands moved with precision, but when she examined Bridget closely, her eyes widened with shock. "Placenta previa," she whispered, her heart sinking. The placenta was blocking the birth canal, a deadly barrier standing between Bridget and her baby. Surgery was no longer an option. It was their only chance. As Bridget writhed in pain, the doctors prepared for an emergency C-section. Gorilla C-sections are almost unheard of, but in this moment, no one thought of the rarity. They thought only of love, of survival, of a mother who deserved to hold her child. Cameras were set up, not for spectacle, but for knowledge, to teach the world how to save another life if this miracle ever repeated itself. And then, silence fell as the incision began. Everyone held their breath, every eye locked on Bridget's trembling form, waiting for the cry of new life. "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned." The room was heavy with anticipation, the kind that makes seconds feel like years. Bridget lay motionless except for the rise and fall of her chest, her body fighting, her spirit ref.